I do think that things happen like builders, entrepreneurs, creators. It all stems from like that concept of like, just because it hasn't been done before or somebody says I can't do it doesn't mean it can't be done. And so whenever my kids are talking about stuff, I've encouraged them. If they say that they want to do something that sounds impossible, I'm all for it. And I will join them in the effort just because I want to see how far we can take it.
Welcome to Startup Dad, the podcast where we dive deep in the lives of dads who are also leaders in the world of startups and business. I'm your host, Adam Fishman. In today's conversation, I'm joined by co-founder and CEO of Havium, Jamie Nacht. He has the honor of being married to his co-founder, Cristin, and raising 2 daughters with her. He joined me today for an absolutely epic conversation. We talked about the importance of keeping things in perspective with kids, a ton of parenting frameworks and routines he's developed with his wife, philosophies and rules around yelling, technology, and the ever-changing bond between kids and dads. He had some hilarious stories about how he learned his kids were always listening, and the power of teaching your kids negotiation at a young age. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Startup Dad on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Jamie Nacht. Welcome, Jamie Nacht, to Startup Dad, and a big thanks to Marlo Struve for connecting the two of us. So welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thanks.
All right, you, sir, are the founder of Havium. You are a dad of 2, and you also have the honor of being married to your co-founder. I assume you were married and then started the company, because that might run afoul of some HR laws otherwise. So that is a very unique dynamic. So what is it like being married to your business partner and also having a family together?
I don't have the other side of it. It's the only experience that I have, but I would say we've found a really nice little rhythm in it. Largely because I think the cliche is that I'm kind of the CEO of the company and she's kind of CEO of the house, and it works really well. She kind of tells me what I need to do and what holes need to be filled and whatever tasks I have. But then when it comes to the company, because it all kind of spiraled out of my little brain, she's deferential to me when it comes to that stuff. Although I do rely on her pretty heavily, because what I've noticed, at least in the company and actually in our family too, is like I'm not really a linear thinker. I get that from my dad. And so she is very good at taking, if we're at A and we need to get to C, she will go A, B, C, and I'll pass through Z and T and Q and all the other ones. So.
You take some detours.
That's right. So she is just absolutely a huge core part of our company, but it all kind of stems out of whatever direction I think it should go.
Okay, awesome. How do the two of you navigate the boundaries between business conversations and family time? Like, is there a boundary there, or is it just kind of always all the things all the time?
You know what? That is a learned thing, because I did not out of the gate set a boundary. And we started the company before we had kids, and then we bought a house, and then we had kids. And it was, as we kind of moved through that whole path, it took a couple of years, but she definitely has a much better boundary with the business than I do. I go to sleep thinking about it and I wake up thinking about it. Whereas I think she dedicates the time that she needs to towards the tasks that are on her plate. And then the rest of the time she's, doing other stuff.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, she spends a lot of her other part of her like cognitive load thinking about the household.
Oh, 100%. Our house would be dysfunctional if she was not in control. I play very little part in the steering of the household. I'm like a willing participant.
Yeah. So you have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and the company predates them. You also have a dog. So you did kind of the right order of operations. Well, maybe the dog could have come first, but you have a 1.5-year-old dog. So you've got 3 kids. One of them has a lot of fur. I'm curious, like, does work stuff 6 and 4 is a little on the younger side, but does work stuff come up like at the dinner table, on the weekends, like with the kids? Do they ask you about it, since the two of you are like, you're both working in the same company? And parents tend to talk about work things, with each other. So
it is interesting. I think my 4-year-old's a little too young to really be asking any questions about it. But my 6-year-old, I'm certain that she is going to do something incredible. She's just like, she's an entrepreneur by heart already. It's kind of fascinating to watch. But I think she doesn't know what our business does. She's in first grade right now. And so as she started getting into school and kind of learning that other parents do other things, she would ask, and I think all she knows is that I am a boss. And she likes the idea of that. She likes that I help people figure out how to do their jobs, and that my job is to help them do their jobs.
Yeah. I love that. She's like, when I grow up, I want to be a boss like dad. I'm going to know who I'm going to boss around. Somebody's going to get bossed. Oh, you mentioned that she's kind of a natural entrepreneur at age 6. Like, how do you know that? What tells you that now?
She surpassed what we thought she would in terms of like just understanding negotiation, understanding money. Like it's interesting to see. She's very kind. She loves like buying things for her brother with her money, but she also understands the concept of like earning the money and keeping it and kind of keeping tabs on it and then trading her time for money. And she talked about, selling artwork and things. I'm like, it's nothing that we introduced. It just like, it has surprised me in terms of what they are capable of without you introducing the concept.
So you're not running like business 101 conversations at the dinner table or anything?
I mean, I do ask her. We frequently have the conversation like, what do you want to do? And it always changes. But I think she understands that she understands maybe to an uncomfortable level at this point. She's like, I want to make money. And then she just like will list off her list of things that she wants. She wants like a house that has got a pink roof and rainbow walls. I would love her to talk to AI and then just AI show me what's in her brain. Yeah. Like, what is she anticipating her life to look like?
You probably could have ChatGPT print out a design for the house that she wants.
I really could.
It'd be incredible.
That's a good idea.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about parenting philosophy. And the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the importance of perspective. So you mentioned this as we were preparing for this show. And so tell me about the importance of perspective in your life.
Well, it's something that we focus on a lot in our household. I think it's something that as far back as I can remember, I have just had a really strong focus on. And to like my wife's chagrin is that when things are hard, I find that maintaining perspective really helps level, like how hard really are they? There's points in time where we have a very nice house. It's not, it's not in downtown Seattle, but it's kind of near Seattle. We look out over the water and it's a great place. We love it. But we will have, very hard weeks where we're just taxed. And we both get up very early. And in the summer, when the sun rises, we get up early and we'll have coffee before the kids are up. And so I was downstairs and it was like a hard week. And I was sipping my coffee and I was just like smiling, looking out the window. And she comes downstairs and she's like, what is wrong with you?
What are you smiling about, weirdo?
Yeah. Yeah. And because we were both just exhausted and wiped. And she started listing off like the stuff that she is kind of frustrated over and all the stuff. And I can't help, my brain just taps into this rhythm of like, well, yeah, that all sounds really hard. But imagine if you were like a single parent, like how hard that would be. Or like, imagine we didn't have your parents live like 5 minutes walk away. And I realized this is a specific story where I started doing that. And she just looked at me and she's like, can you not right now? She's like, I don't need that right now.
Yeah.
She's like,
it's like a classic male problem solving moment there. Where
totally.
Like, I must fix this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I realized, but that is my like self-soothing is like when things are tough, I'm like, well, it could be way tougher. And then it kind of level sets it. So I kind of help the kiddos because I think I want it to be kind of in their fabric to think about things and say like, oh, maybe you had some piece of artwork that got ripped and you're really upset about it. But think about like there's way worse things that could have happened. And if they can train that muscle, I really do think that in the long run, it helps you just kind of be resilient. And I think our kids are already kind of exhibiting that, the resilience to like just understanding the luxuries that they're afforded.
Yeah. One of the other things that you mentioned about your kids or just your kind of philosophy on kids in general is that they come out, I think the quote was incredibly par-baked. And so you kind of mentioned this with your daughter having these like entrepreneurial tendencies where you're like, well, we didn't steer her in that direction. But I'd love to hear more about that. Like what made you realize or come to this kind of conclusion that kids are like mostly baked when they start growing up.
For anybody that has kids, you watch them and you're like, what is going on in that little brain? Like, she came out the other day. We have a powder room in our main floor. And she came out the other day and said, I want all the toilet paper tubes. And I was like, okay. Then she proceeded to make a box and a sign to put in there that's like, put your toilet paper tubes in here when you run out. And I'm like, she's like a little scavenger. And she loves, if we get like an Amazon package and we unwrap it and there's a box, she's like, you can use that box? And I'm like, what? I mean, it's like little stuff like that is just kind of fascinating to me to kind of watch. Or the fact that they had this exact same parenting. Jovi, very art focused, will sit and draw and color. Brooker, really builder focused. We have those magnetiles and he will just build structures and he gets really dialed into it and super focused. And like neither of those things, we basically just like presented all the options to them and said, go with what you want. But watching them make those decisions and then watching them negotiate with each other, like none of it is stuff we give them the tools to figure out how to negotiate. The approach that they take is nothing we would have shown them. It's just great. And I love, we now have, there's other things that we've kind of captured. Like my mom has done this great thing where she every year captures what they say and then makes a photo book of Joviisms or Brookerisms. And it is great to hear how their little brain thinks with no prodding. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that idea now. I kind of want to. Well, maybe it's a little too late for me to steal that idea. My kids are a lot older now, but if only I had done that. No, there's probably still some good isms from my kids. Mostly, we just get a lot of eye rolling from my daughter now. So
yeah. Well, how old are your kids?
Almost 13 and 10, almost 11.
You're heading into the eye of the storm. All the changes.
I'm rewatching all of the Startup Dad episodes with the dads of teenagers just to prepare myself. So
I have this working theory that if your kiddo was easy when they're little, then teen years, they're gonna like, I think
it's like the opposite.
Karma. Yeah. I think karma takes its pound of flesh. I think if you get an easy little one, you get like a real crazy teen or vice versa. I could be wrong, but I think that's my working theory.
Well, speaking of crazy teens and kids' personalities, what are some of the most surprising things that you've discovered about your kids' personalities that were kind of just like already there? Some of that par baked nature.
Brooker being 4, we're seeing a lot of things just now bubbling up when like the 3 or 4, because he's a very young 4. Jovi was like she's like old 6. So Jovi, like just her general approach to everybody is like just raw kindness, which I'm delighted by. She's been that way since, right out of the gate. She could barely speak and she would just walk up to kids and introduce herself and want to make friends. Brooker, I've been so fascinated because aside from the building stuff, she's such a force that it could go one of two ways. If she wasn't kind, I would really be concerned about, but she's so kind that like in the mornings, he wakes up, runs across the hall to her room, jumps in, and then we see him on our little cameras we have, and they're just like hanging out. They talk about any number of things. I don't get to hear those parts of the conversation amongst the 4 of us, but we get to like tap into it just because we hear them like sitting in bed talking about who knows what.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's really awesome. I wish my kids were like that friendly to each other. But.
Well, I was shocked because my sister, I'm one of 2, I'm the younger one. And my sister, I think she would agree with this, but until about 20, she spent a lot of her energy to like torture me. But I'm like a human golden retriever, so I never really knew it. I was just like, okay, like she would like go after me. And then at 20, we became like best friends. So I was worried that's how Jovi, being pretty similar age gap, would be to Brooker. But she, to date, knock on wood, is like just the sweetest, nicest sister.
That's kind of you and your sister are kind of like how me and my brother would happen with us. He was on this show. He was in the 100th episode. So yeah. But we also became friends once I went off to college, basically. I was the oldest. So
yeah.
And tortured him beforehand. So
yeah. There's something there. It's like, I think it's just like a sibling thing, but I'm kind of fascinated because I did not anticipate it, nor did I have any solution if Jovi was like torturing her brother. But she really does. She like just, if he's at school and she has like the day off, she can't wait for him to come home so they can hang out. It's like kind of neat. Yeah.
I want to talk about creativity a little bit. You told me that it is important for adults to reignite creativity and play when they have kids. Can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like in your house?
There's a very specific example that I was thinking of when I wrote that to you. Was every night. So we have a pretty prescribed routine at night. When I put Jovi to bed, when we've been doing this for years now, we go upstairs and we have we brush our teeth and we get ourselves ready for bed. And then we go in and I read to her, or she reads a little bit to me for about 40 minutes. And then we used to have this thing where we would watch one or two YouTube videos on my phone. My wife kiboshed that. She does not agree with technology in the bedroom. And so we went to playing mermaids, which is my daughter's creation,
Okay.
where we basically just pretend we're mermaids. And she has a unhealthy amount of stuffed animals in her room, and she will grab stuffed animals and we kind of play like little kids. And at the beginning, it felt so foreign to me because it was just like, your brain is like, this has no purpose to me.
Right. Probably feels ridiculous. You're like,
It feels so silly. But I started to really enjoy it. And I delighted in how much she just soaked it up. And so it has become part of that routine. And I think by letting her be that creative, it is kind of nurturing more parts of her creativity throughout her day, because she really does look forward to it. And then she has that creativity when she goes downstairs and she will in the morning draw something that relates to mermaids from the night before. It's really neat. It's something that I didn't anticipate before being a dad.
Okay. Has she seen The Little Mermaid yet?
She has.
Okay. How did that can be a little scary for a 6-year-old.
I think we introduced it to her before she had the concept of fear, because now she is super, and I think there are some kids that do this. I think it's not uncommon, but like new movies are persona non grata. And like we have to so we started instituting like new movie Fridays. We cook pizza at home every Friday night. And then on occasion we'll do a movie afterwards. Forever, we were just watching the same movies. And finally I was like, we are not watching like name your movie again. And she still to this day puts up a fight if we want to watch a new movie. We watched, I forget the one with Kumail Nanjiani where he's a duck, but we got like 8 minutes into it and it's not even that scary, but there's like maybe a scary looking duck. They land in like a pond and she just started losing it, crying. Like, I can't watch this. Too scary. We haven't watched it since, but it is one of those things where there's a lot of bartering in our house. And so it's like, all right, we're going to watch a movie. It's going to be a new one. If you don't like it, put your head under the pillow for the time. I'll let you know when it's done. We're trying to teach new things are okay.
I believe that movie is Migration.
You're right. It is Migration.
About. Yes. Kumail Nanjiani.
I hope it's good. I hope I get to watch it at some point.
You will. Date night with your wife. Okay, let's talk about parenting frameworks. So you have many of these, several of them that you've developed or maybe in conjunction with your wife. And I want to dig into a few of them. The first one will be one that is familiar to a lot of guests and also listeners, which is routines. So for you, routines are priceless, and you said they prevent 90% of frustration. So can you take me through like some of the routines that you have in your household?
For sure. I will credit. We have some friends, Sarah and Ty, that, as I recall, they had kids earlier than we did. And they let us know, they were like, we put our kids, I don't care if it's summer and the sun's not going down until 9:00. We put our kids in the room at 7, and everything after 7 is our time. And we adopted it, and it has worked so well. Like, it sets that expectation. Like, hey, at 6:45, we're heading upstairs. And then by like 7, we're out of those rooms, and they might sit and be quiet by themselves in their rooms or think about things or play with something in their room. But like, that is the routine. And then we have these like funny routines that I would say are just accidental. Like, we do have Pizza Friday almost every Friday, we cook pizza at home. And every Sunday, because my in-laws live so close, we go over there, and my wife's mom cooks. It's like Sunday dinner, and we hang out with them. And it's like, I think the kids don't realize it, but it really does like kind of stave off the friction that comes with not really knowing what is going to happen, or like trying to plan stuff. And it makes life really easy for them too, because they don't argue with it. It's just like, it's an expectation.
It becomes very predictable for them. They're just like, this is my life. This is what I do.
Right. And when there is changes, we try to couch them in like the excitement of it. Like, oh, we're not doing, dinner with Nana Papa on Sunday because we're going to this like show. That's exciting. I think a lot of it is just like that expectation. If they have those expectations framed, then there's not really a lot of fuss.
Yeah. Speaking of deviating from the plan, you have another parenting principle, which is when things go wrong, that's just part of the fun. So I love that reframing, by the way. Could you tell me how that works in practice? And then how do you teach that to your kids?
So a lot of it has just been on the fly, like maintaining that approach. So Jovi, we put her in soccer when she was 4, and then we took a year off and then put her back when she was 6. And when she was 6, there was, I don't know, the second or third game of the season. Soccer at that age is like raw chaos, and she's like not a big fan of chaos. So all the kids are like running at each other, and she's like keeping like
ball
5
squirts out, and
just like, and then the horde moves over it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so she is not a huge fan of that. She likes to like observe her environment and then enter. But we kept telling her like, hey, you got to get in there and like kick the ball. And so finally she kind of got into it, and some kids like stepped on her foot, and I think it hurt. And she ran middle of the game, runs over to the sidelines to me crying. And she was like, my foot, like they stepped on my foot. And I was like, you did it. And she was like, what? And I was like, that's like level 1. You just got past level 1. And she was like, what's level 2? And I was like, you're going to get kicked in the shin. And she was like, what? And she came back at the end of the game, and she was like, I'm past level 2. Some kid kicked me in the shin. So like reframing it, we're taking it from, this happened and it didn't feel good, to like, you just got past something that you didn't have happen before, which she really does. Both my kids are like both coin operated and progress focused. And so it has like worked for them to like frame it in that way. Brooker has been he's been funny because he's younger, and he didn't take to it quite as welcomingly as Jovi did. We have this funny story where we were both, I think Cristin and I were sitting at our table, and we have like a recessed kind of playroom area. He has these magnetiles, and he built this like giant structure. And he obviously is not an architect or an engineer, so he didn't build it super well, and it like fell over.
Oh, a tragedy.
Oh, it was just, his world was over. But what we cracked up is I don't know when we started doing this, we heard him say to himself, like, it's part of the fun. And I was like, oh, buddy.
Yeah, because if you knock it down, you get to rebuild it,
Yeah, but I think both of them kind of understand. I think Brooker's still at like I think he's like 80% there, but I think it is that like, hey, you built it and that way didn't work. Let's try a different way. And maybe it'll get even bigger. Both of our kids, they have started to learn that like, it's not fun when things don't go the way that you wanted, but it's part of it. And I think it ties in with like being a good loser, being willing to understand that like failure is part of the path to success.
Yeah. Learning to lose and making mistakes is one that you mentioned that you're kind of still working on in your household. I mean, shit, as an adult, as a mid-40s adult, I'm still working on this personally. How do you teach your kids to lose gracefully? Like, what does that look like in practice?
This is a work in progress. And I wish I had a better answer. So have you ever had the experience where you learn something so far back that you don't remember how you learned it? So it's kind of hard to teach it to somebody else. For as long as I can remember, like that's just been part of I like the game. I love winning, but I don't mind losing. And I'm like, if we were playing cards and you won a round, I would be like, great, let's play again. I'm not mad that you won. I'm like, I'll probably win the next round. My wife, when we first met, she said she didn't like games. And I took that to be that she just wasn't very competitive. What I have come to realize is that she is like insanely competitive.
She doesn't like to lose.
She does not like to lose. And so if she sees that she has a low probability of winning, she will want to leave the game. She's like, I'm done with this game. Yeah, I don't want to finish it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that has kind of come through with, I wouldn't say that they have that quite characteristic, but I would say Jovi hates losing. Brooker, I think he still kind of hasn't really gathered how he feels about it. For Jovi, if she loses, she gets very, very upset. And so now my goal with this is to start to kind of get her familiar. She's very good with numbers. And so my family game is Meldrummy. And so I played with my parents. My parents played with my grandparents, all that stuff. And so I want to get her into that because I think that was foundational for me to be like, hey, it's just a game. And then at the end of the game, we can play another round. It's not that bad. It's one of those things where I'm really trying to figure out how to teach them. It kind of falls in line with the perspective part of it. I'm trying to teach them like, hey, it's just a game. Like, play really hard, have fun with it. I do want you to, try to win. But if you don't win, recognize that life will go on.
Yeah. There's a few more that I want to cover here. One that I absolutely love is you have this sort of principle of don't immediately answer, and kind of like turning this back on your kids to get their perspective on what they think. What's an example of that, or like something surprisingly insightful that they told you when you kind of did this to your kids?
It's fascinating to watch their little brain work on stuff. So, I mean, a lot of it I probably should pay more attention to, but they kind of just figured it out. And I'm like, oh, great, you figured it out. I do think that as for a certain period of time when Jovi was starting to understand that like babies come from adults and all that stuff, and she was starting to ask questions around that, we didn't want to like prejudice her with how it actually works. And so she'd be like, where do babies come from? And I'd be like, where do you think they come from? And she would come up with, I mean, I would say it's a 50-50 shot whether she still thinks that babies come out of the butt. But I think it's possible because I think that's at some point, I think she was like, that's probably what happens. Right. And I was like, could be. And like, even if they have the right or wrong answer, a lot of times I don't want to just correct them. So I'll just be like, hey, that's very possible. Could be. I don't know. Maybe we should talk to an expert about it. I should look back on like the Joviisms because a lot of them, I think, stem from her trying to figure out how something works and me not being open to share how it actually works. I'm like, you tell me how it works?
There's probably an entire chapter of the Joviism book that is just where do babies come from? Just like all the things that she thought or believed at one point. So
yeah, I would love to see the pictures associated with that.
Okay, I've got two more principles of yours that I wanted to talk about. One is teaching negotiation early. So you told me that you love watching your kids negotiate. What do they negotiate about? Well, what's like the best one that you've witnessed between your kids?
I think both of my kids are like master negotiators. I go in with like a concession, I'll try to meet you halfway. My kids go for the throat. Like they'll ask, can we stay up late? I'm like, how late are we talking about? And they will start at like so late, like midnight. And then I'm like, well, we're not doing that. They will like, where should we go this weekend? Disneyland. We're not going to do that. Like that's a plane ride away. And I think it's great to see those, but they are so good at negotiating to a point where I think it maps to another part of what I shared with you, which was this like stick to your promises, because the negotiation side of it is like from our side, if you don't eat all your food, then you got to like stay at the table. Like that's a promise that I'm making to you. And if you bolt from the table to go play for something and we're not done with dinner, then I'm going to take you up to your room. You're going to like hang out in your room for a little bit. And I think they have learned that Cristin and I have worked on it because Cristin, she was like a lot of like threats, but no follow through. If you get off one more time, if you get off the bench.
I know that mode. I myself have fallen prey to that. Yeah.
And like Cristin will see, cause we have an open kitchen. And so she'll say something like that. And then she'll look at me and I'm like, but my kids are just very good at asking for the most that they could possibly get and working backwards. And I think it's great. I mean, I wish I had that negotiating skill.
I feel like Chris Voss in Never Split the Difference probably talks about that as a strategy.
Right? anchor to the to the most and then work backward. Yeah. It started, I'll share just a quick story, which is that when we started to introduce the concept, it was when Jovi was like 3. I like to treat them like they're older than they are. And so we were trying to get her to go to bed. And she said, like, I want 2 stories tonight. I was like, you're not doing 2 stories tonight. And she was like, I want 2 stories tonight. And I said, all right, if you can give me a 3-pillar thesis, this is verbatim what I said. You give me a 3-pillar thesis on why you should get 2 stories tonight. We'll do 2 stories. Jovi turned to me and she goes, I saw a deer. I like butter. I need stories. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's 3.
That's a 3-pillar thesis.
Yeah, you got your 3. You got your 2 stories. You win.
3 just completely unrelated, independent statements. But that, I mean, she kind of got the assignment.
She got it.
Yeah.
She knew there was 3 things that needed to happen.
Yeah, cool. Okay, the last one that I want to talk to you about, I found this really interesting. You described there are 2 types of chores in your household. There's the kind that you do because you have to contribute, like it's sort of an expectation. And then there's the kind that you can like get an allowance for. And allowance is really interesting because, people have a whole myriad of philosophies around this. Can you tell me a little bit about like the 2 types of chores and how you think about all this? I think your hope is that this helps kids understand how like the world really operates.
There was some, I don't know, YouTube clip or something that I saw years and years ago where this lady talked about that. And it really framed in my head how I wanted to approach it with our family, which is as an adult, there is stuff that you got to do just to do, right? Like you got to do your own laundry. Nobody's going to pay you to do your own laundry. And then there's stuff that you got to do, like you got to go out and be productive to earn income. She talked about how modeling it for kids that way really helps them understand like there is a baseline. As part of the family, as part of the unit, you got to do that. And that's just part of your contribution. And so Jovi now, she understands that when she gets up, her responsibilities are she has to go get her brother up and then she has to make her bed and put her laundry in her hamper. She's been doing a pretty good job with it, but she knows she doesn't get an allowance for that. She doesn't get any money for that. But then she's also been asking, she's like, can I do, something else? And so the comedy of it is that, so we have a lot of glass in our house, glass railings. And so she was like, can I do glass? And glass is, we give them a little spray bottle in a bag. It does not look clean, but she's working away.
Yeah. Sweating.
Yeah. Just she really is. She'll do it for like 20 minutes. But I'm like that. You came to me and said, if I do this, do I get, can I get like $1? And so we're starting to get to that point. My next hope with it is this concept that from that YouTube clip I was referencing was this lady said she grew up in a household where they did this. I thought it was so clever is where she said, like, when I did chores and earned money, if I earned $10, I got 8. And 2 of those dollars went into the family fund. And then when the family fund got enough, we did something fun with it. And she was like, it was like a tax that I didn't even realize. And I was like, well, that's a good way to kind of introduce the concept of like, there's stuff you got to do just to do it. There's stuff you got to do to make money. And that some of that money goes towards like the greater good.
Awesome. Well, you've told me a bunch of cool stories. I want to ask you about a few more. There's like a couple lessons that I learned from you and in our prep. One that you have is that kids are always listening, even when you don't think they are. And I have a feeling that there's like a really good story behind this. So I'd love to hear it.
I'll share 2. One that is more risque and one that is fine. The less risque one was that when we have Pizza Friday and my in-laws, my father-in-law is like 100% Italian. So with Pizza Friday, we would have a bottle of wine that we would all share. And at a certain point when Jovi was 2 or 3, she wanted to participate. And so we'd give her a little cranberry juice with some water in it. And we call it Jovi wine. And I remember we were up visiting my parents. And we went to this restaurant that's called the White Spot up in Vancouver. It's excellent, super. But we go there and we sit down and the waiter came by and said, before you guys order, can I get drinks started for everybody? And before we could say anything, Jovi was like, I'll have wine. And we were like, oh God.
She's like 2.
And then we had to immediately be like, what she means, we don't give her wine. That was the one that was like less risque. The one that was more, in my opinion, comedic, but there was when Jovi was maybe a little over 2. I think the question she asked was like, where was I before I was here? Kind of a deep question.
Yeah, that is a deep question.
Yeah. And so we were like, where do you think you were? She was like, well, I think I was in mom's belly. And she was like, yeah, that's right. You were in mom's belly. And I leaned over the table and I jokingly said to my wife, I was like, before that, she was in balls. And I thought it was between my wife and I.
Right. Kids have very good hearing.
Such good hearing. And so a week goes by. I didn't think she caught it. And then we're at my in-laws for dinner, and Jovi goes up to my in-laws and is like, Nana Peppa, before I was here, I was in mom's belly. And before that, I was in daddy's balls. And I was like, and like my father-in-law looked at me and was like,
what? He's like, what is going on at your house?
How and why? Just why?
That's amazing. Love that story. Kids always listening.
Always listening. They pick up so much.
Other thing that I learned from you is you have this rule, I guess I would call it, that is, yelling at anyone in anger, but yelling in frustration is okay. So help me understand that distinction and what that looks like in real life.
I can tell you in our house what it looks like, which is if you get mad, if Jovi gets mad at Brooke or Brooke gets mad at Jovi, more often it's the second one, that I encourage it. I'll join them if they're upset. And so if I can see one of them boiling over, then I will go over to them and be like, hey, do you need to scream? And then they will start screaming and then I'll scream with them. And it immediately becomes an enjoyable, right? The second that we're both yelling, whatever they're mad about is gone because both of us are yelling and making faces at each other. And then all of a sudden, and I think just the act of yelling kind of is a release.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Totally. So helping them kind of understand, like, you can be mad about something, but unless somebody did something to purposefully harm you or hurt you or do something to you, don't be mad at them. Be mad that happened. And I think it works for them. Part of it is, I think, just the DNA of my wife. She's very calm all the time, but it's like they don't scream at each other. They don't scream at other people. They just kind of, most of it is just a raw frustration. It's like, it's part of the fun.
I love that. I want to talk a little bit about technology with you. So you obviously you started a technology company with your wife, and you have an interesting approach to technology for your kids, which is around giving them devices that are intentionally slow and frustrating. So tell me about how that works.
This is a real plug for the Amazon tablets for kids.
Oh, yeah, they're horrendous.
Oh they're so bad.
They're so bad.
Oh man, we have like 2 generations back.
The Fire
so
HD Kids tablet.
That's right. It is.
Sorry, Amazon will never be a sponsor of the show, but you tap the screen and something happens 10 minutes later.
That's right. And this, if anything, this is a plug for them because it's like, I would say it works so well to discourage them from wanting to be on that thing. Because it will freeze up on occasion. They want to change to a different app and it just stops working. The Bluetooth is unpredictable. So it works well. My wife has really kind of spearheaded this, no technology in the bedrooms, limited technology. But it is funny because, my kids to date don't have a lot of desire to do it. They love watching movies and things or shows. We're a big Bluey household, but the act of playing with that thing, and when it runs out of battery, which it does not have a great battery, it's a gift for us. It serves its purpose. If we're on an airplane, it'll last 2 or 3 hours, but it is so annoying to them that a lot of times they just move on. I will say this, it just in the last week or so, my wife, we were talking about that specific thing, and I was saying, well, this is not working to your benefit because she could not for the life of her get Brooker's headset to pair. You'd go into the parent mode and it would pair, and then you flip to the child's profile and it would unpair. And she was like, she came down so mad and she had to go pick up the kids, and she was like, can you get this to pair? And I spent 5 minutes I was like, it's not possible. I don't know how the software is. Yeah. And so I gave it back to her and she was like, this is not helpful for me. And I was like, well, I don't know what you mean. I didn't make it. So
you're like, I have a solution. A corded headset. Here we
Yeah,
go.
exactly. I mean, I told her, I was like, we have old iPads we can give them. And she's like, no, it has to be garbage.
Those work so well, those old iPads. No, it's got to be way worse. It has to literally be like a napkin with like a thing on it. It's like an etch-a-sketch.
That's right. We like bridge them in.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask you one more technology question, which is about AI and creative AI uses as a parent. We have this part of the show I call AI Corner. So your kids are not quite old enough for you to do a bunch of AI stuff with them. But you did invent a tiger giraffe hybrid that you turned into a coloring book. Tell me about the tiger-raph story. And what are you doing with AI that kind of is fun with the kids?
I mean, a lot of it just because of their age and the nascency of AI. Like, I mean, ChatGPT in December was not on my radar. So it's so new that really a lot of it is just tied to like coloring stuff for them. But it is really neat. So one of the things that we did was that I fed into whichever one I was working with a picture of each of my kids. For about a year, my daughter loved everything unicorns, and my son loved everything my daughter loved. So they're both into it. And then it flipped to cats, and then tigers became a thing. So I was like, can you make a coloring picture for my kids a black and white picture for my kids to color of Jovi and Brooker on a unicorn with a castle in the background. And it did a pretty good job. And then they started wanting to color more and more. And one of the things, I made this one that Jovi asked for. She was riding a tiger on a mountain. And then Brooker said he wanted that. And so I made one for Brooker. And then he was like, no. And then he starts telling me that, no, I want a giraffe. And I was like, okay. And so I go in, and because at that point, it must have been like March, April, where it was, again, the software was not great at that point. It was still like iterating. And so I was like, okay, can you just change the picture to Bricker riding a giraffe? And it came up with this like hybrid, and Bricker loved it. It was like a tiger with like giraffe bumps, a long neck, but like definitely a tiger. I would say for adults, if you have kids that are 2 to 4 and are in the coloring age, one of the best hacks that you can do is to come up with, because kids love stuff where they're in it, is just to like, especially if you're going on vacation, to make like 20 and print them off and then just bring them. It allows them to kind of get that creative part to it where they can see, they can add to the things and they can color in, maybe you just make the horizon and then they can color in like the stars and all that stuff. But I feel like that is a lifesaver for us in that it's so different from like coloring, like a coloring book.
Yeah. I mean, very rarely do you purchase a coloring book in the store that has a tiger giraffe hybrid in it.
Very rarely. Almost never.
Yeah. But if they were smart, they would do that. Houghton Mifflin or one of the companies. I want to ask you a little bit about, you've mentioned a few times that your in-laws live very close to you, which, Italian family, I get it. Makes a lot of sense. And I think they moved, like they sold their place and moved across the country right around the time that Jovi was born, which is pretty incredible. Like what a gift to have family moving close. It makes such a difference. But I'm very curious, like that was a big deal. So, what was that conversation like? Or was it mostly your wife having that conversation? Was it that the two of you, like what kind of discussion did you have with your in-laws around this, pick up their whole lives and move closer to you?
I did not have that expectation. And I was shocked, pleasantly shocked, when it became an opportunity for that to happen, because Cristin is the younger, and her older brother doesn't plan to have any kids. And so when Jovi was born, they came out and got an Airbnb for a couple months. And I think the conversation must have happened when I wasn't in the room, of Cristin talking about whether they would like to come out here. But I think, according to Cristin, there was like a foregone conclusion. Her mom, Nana, Mary, wanted to take a big role as a grandparent. And we got so incredibly lucky, because the place that we lived, when we moved back to Seattle, we lived in downtown Seattle. And then my wife found this great place that I thought was going to be an investment property. But we have this great place, and there was a community. It was a really nice community, brand new homes. And so Doug and Mary, my in-laws, saw that, and they had a house they had built like 35 years ago in North Conway, New Hampshire. but it was getting older. It was a nice welcomed opportunity. And so they kind of said like, hey, we're going to sell our house and move over there. And it took me kind of a minute to process all of it. And then I was like, this is incredible, because I don't know if you had this with your kids, but there's two moments that really stand out for me. One was when that happened, like seeing how important it is to have family as part of it, and how fortunate we are in comparison to like some of my friends who moved from other parts of the world or other parts of the country and they don't have any support system. And then the other one was like picking a preschool. Like the first time you're like, okay, I'm giving my child to somebody else for a period of time. When we started interviewing preschools, I was like, I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know what to expect. And they were pretty pivotal times, but I mean, both of those times were impactful for me, where I was like, oh, wow. And finding the right preschool and then being like just overjoyed with how much they care about your kids.
Yeah. Okay. So with these grandparents, in-laws that live 5-10 minutes away, you have a no drop-in rule, a mutually respected no drop-in rule. Can you tell me why? Like, why did this boundary get established, and how has that worked out for you all?
So that I borrowed from another set of friends, Carly and Kyle, that Carly kind of shared this story that they have kids. And I think Carly anticipated more drop-ins. And so they set that boundary because I think there was an expectation that they were just, the in-laws were just be showing up whenever they wanted.
Surprise!
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of laid that out as my expectation when the concept developed of my in-laws moving close. But Cristin kind of reminded me that like my in-laws appreciate that rule as much as I do. They don't want us to be just like popping in on them as much as we don't want them to pop in on us. And so there is kind of a mutual respect there. The only violation, I wouldn't say violation, the only time we sort of navigate that rule is we have a Greek bakery by us. Occasionally, Doug, my father-in-law, will go down there early in the morning on a weekend and then just show up at our house with like fresh baked croissants and pastries. And that is very welcomed. We have no problem with that drop-in, but it's funny because he does it and then he doesn't want to stick around. He's like, hey, I bought all these things here, and he kind of hands them to us on our deck, and then he like takes off. But aside from that, it just, the boundary works really well, because I think there are certainly circumstances where that would be really frustrating if they were just showing up.
I think a lot of people who are listening to this will appreciate knowing that you can set that boundary and that it is mutually respected. So let's go. People, if you listeners, if you take away one thing, just know it is a gift to have your in-laws nearby, and you can also create a rule that says no unanticipated drop-ins.
Yeah, don't show up unannounced.
Okay, I have just a few more topics that I wanted to cover with you. We are now in the throes of recording an epic podcast here, so this is lovely. You have some dad friends, as one does, and I think you had some friends. You said maybe you have some friends who had kids a little bit younger than you or a little bit earlier than you, and some of your friends told you about the bond between dads and kids and how that kind of like changes at different points in time. What does that mean? And do you have an experience with this that you can share when you were like, okay, now I'm a dad?
Yeah, I can speak to that because it was kind of helpful for me to learn kind of from my friends that preceded me in becoming parents. Comedically, for me, it was a funny story, and I won't share who it was. When Jovi was very little, we went to this great restaurant out on the peninsula, on the Olympic Peninsula up in Washington, and we met our friends. And my buddy, who I've known forever, we were talking about the bond between you and your kids. And he jokingly said, he's like, yeah, I didn't even like my oldest until she was 3. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, he was like, I did, but like, we weren't hanging out. Like, it was like more of a responsibility. At first I was like, ugh. And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Sure, maybe. And then I realized that for the first year of life, so my wife was fortunate enough to be able to breastfeed our kids. And so for the first year of life, like they're so dependent on their mom that the dad is like superfluous. I was there as a supporting character, and the combination of not really growing up with a lot of small children around. So it was kind of a foreign, when you see like, I would say college-aged males, if you hand them a baby and they're like, what are you doing?
Holding it like a greased pig. Like,
Yeah, yeah, they like hold it out.
Where do I deposit this thing?
You take it back. So I felt like when we had Jovi, I really did for the first while. I was like, we have this baby. I don't know anything about it, and I can't give it food, and I can't, so it just kind of is like sitting there staring at you.
Yeah, it's like a potato.
Right. And then I realized another set of my friends, they were ahead of us by, I think, a year and a half. And my buddy said, oh yeah, I didn't really bond with my daughter super well until we had our second. Because when we had our second, I was the caretaker for the first, because my wife was doing everything to keep this little baby alive. But having those pieces of knowledge, I did get to witness it with our experience. But it was like these points in time when you have this intense bonding, if you have a second child, where your first child kind of bonds to the dad, that was pretty profound for me. And it quickly became like, we're like two like kiddos together, like up to no good. Like mom has to do something with Brooker, so why don't we go get a donut or something? Like it was like all the fun stuff that once you go through that really tight bonding period, I think you develop like a different set of feelings for your kids. Not that I didn't love them right out of the gate, but it's like I became like best buds. And then with Brooker, he's now at the age where when I'm doing stuff just with him, we just had a Daddy Sunday and I took him down to the waterfront and he took me on a tour. I was like, where are we going? And he was like, you come on. Like, it was like, there's nothing to see there. And he was like, no, keep coming.
Well, if Jovi had taken you, would have ended up at a wine bar because she likes wine so much, right? Yeah.
we'd be tipping bottles for sure.
I love that. I really love that idea. And I think, hearing this will help a lot of dads who probably go through the same thing of just like, I'm pretty useless. When am I going to really be into this kid? And it just takes some time and changes. Okay, so I just have a couple more questions for you before we wrap up and move to lightning round, which is always a treat. You described yourself to me as having an anything is possible mentality. You think your parents instilled in you. And you said your wife, Cristin, rolls her eyes at it a little bit sometimes.
Still, yes.
So tell me about that. And then how are you passing that mentality on to your kids?
So yes, to start with, I still have that. And I did get it from my parents. And my wife still does roll her eyes at it. She was reminding me that the concept started when we were dating. And she was like, you're very confident. I would say I try to make sure that I'm not cocky, but I am very confident. And so I was like, yeah. And she goes, you think you can do anything? And I was like, pretty much. And she goes, you can't. And I was like, but I think I can. And she was like, you couldn't be like at this point, I think I was like 30. And she said, you couldn't be like an astronaut now. It's too late. And I was like, well, I could very much be an astronaut right now. And then she started like finding harder. She was like, you couldn't be a pro athlete. And I was like, if you gave me enough money and time, for sure. And then she was like, you couldn't be like a pro basketball player. And I was like, at that point in my head, I was like, probably not. But when I just fed, I was like, I think I could.
You went out in the driveway and started shooting threes to get ready.
Yeah. So anyway, we still have that. And so I have encouraged it. She thinks it is delusional, but I do think that things happen like builders, entrepreneurs, creators. It all stems from like that concept of like, just because it hasn't been done before or somebody says I can't do it, doesn't mean it can't be done. And so whenever my kids are talking about stuff, I've encouraged them. If they say that they want to do something that sounds impossible, I'm all for it. And I will join them in the effort just because I want to see how far we can take it.
Okay. I have one more question for you, which is, if you think about your kids growing up and you try to teach them things and you have these principles that we talked about, if there was just one thing that they embodied as they got older that you've tried to teach them, what would you want that one thing to be?
It's a good question. I think I would have to cheat and give you two responses.
I will allow it.
Okay. So I would say, I think they need to understand that kindness is important. That at the end of the day, your job is to impact others in a positive way. And that work ethic, practice is important. And that the only way you're going to get better at something is by doing it over and over if it's important to you, and be comfortable with the process of practicing. I think that's lost on kids. I mean, everybody talks about like the whole concept of like piano lessons. No kid is like thrilled about taking piano lessons. But my mom said this, and I'm sure she stole it from somewhere else, but she was saying that no adult was ever mad that they had to take piano lessons. Like, it's in the moment when you're a kid, you're like, I hate this. I don't have to practice, and it's by myself. But then when you get much better, I think you start to realize the real value of like, wow, I spent all this time doing these stupid songs that I didn't enjoy, but now I can play the piano. I think those two things, being kind and understanding the gravity and the value of practicing hard things. I hope my kids listen to this 30 years from now and are like, nailed it.
Nailed it, Dad. Good job. All right. Well, with that, how can people follow along with what you're building at Havium or your life, or connect with you if they feel, some kindred spiritness in listening to this podcast?
So I'm not a big social media individual, although I think that is going to be changing just because of my role at the company. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm going to be the most active. But yeah, that, and then just follow Havium. We're building something that I think I'm very excited about. 100% of our clients love us. Check it out. Take a look at havium.com.
Cool. You may have people pinging you asking for tiger giraffe hybrid coloring pages.
Oh,
so
unlimited. I have so many.
All right, let's do lightning round. Are you ready?
I think so. We'll find out.
Okay. What is the most indispensable parenting product that you've ever purchased?
I noodled on this a lot. I talked to my wife about this, and I think the best product that we came across was a sign that you put on your front door when you have little kids that says, "Do not ring bell. There will be babies crying, dogs barking, things will get ugly."
Yeah.
And it costs, I think we got it on Etsy for like $8.
Yeah.
And it saved our lives.
Yeah. We had
Such
a similar sign. Love
Such
that.
a good piece of, yeah. That's a great, like, if you're thinking about gifts for people with newborns, amazing gift.
Okay. What is the most useless parenting product that you've ever purchased?
I would say it's always been shocking to me. I don't think they're more parenting products as like the toys that you think are going to be great for kids. I would say all those toys you think you're going to need, you probably won't need them.
Yeah. Well, all she needs is toilet paper rolls and boxes from Amazon.
Boxes?
Yeah,
that's right.
That's it.
And like maybe markers and occasionally like some of the Elmer's glue with the glitter in it.
Okay, what is the weirdest thing that you've ever found in one of your kids' pockets or in the bottom of the washing machine?
Oh, I would say, I asked my wife about this, and we both agree, rocks. They just like love rocks. Rocks in pockets are like a thing. I don't know if it's like at the moment they put it in their pocket, they're like, I'm going to need this later, but it's fascinating. Okay. Rocks, and then as a second, shells. Shells end up in pockets.
Rocks and shells. Hard, sharp things. True or false?
Great for the inside.
There is only one correct way to load the dishwasher.
True.
Okay, is it your
way?
And
yes, I've listened to a handful of the episodes, and it is so funny to find my people in those episodes because, yes, I will say it seems to be a male thing, but I don't want to like fully stereotype it. I will go in and just like rearrange it. I'm like, what kind of animal, what kind of rabid raccoon put this stuff in here in this way?
Right. Okay, what is your signature dad superpower aside from loading the dishwasher?
I would say there's probably two. One is I can make anything fun. It works, I would say 99.9% of the time. And the second is I am solid on breakfasts. And this is like a extra bonus for your listeners. The best breakfast dad hack is, for your listeners, you pause, go get a notepad, write this down. Dutch baby pancake. All you have to do is if you have a blender and you have a pan, ideally like a cast iron pan, you throw 2 eggs. Good for the kids, get a little protein in them. So 2 eggs, half a cup of flour, half a cup of milk, pinch of salt, a little bit of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons of sugar, throw it in a blender and whiz it up. And then take that skillet, throw a knob of butter in there, get it melted, preheat the oven to 425, pour into the skillet, dust with some sugar and cinnamon, pop it into the oven. You are good. And if you have a Vitamix, it's like 10 or 15 minutes. All of a sudden, you got this great little pancake. If you have a Vitamix, all you got to do is put a drop of soap in, a little bit of water. That cleans it. Yep. With a cast iron skillet. You don't wash it. You just wipe it out, put it away. You got the best breakfast. My kids, like Saturdays, they always get it. Sundays, they usually ask for it. But it is the easiest thing. And if you want to like impress your spouse, there's no dishes.
Okay.
It is the fastest, easiest thing.
I think we may have just come up with the episode title for this show. One way to impress your spouse.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm going to steal that maybe this weekend. Okay. What is the crazier block of time in your house? 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.?
6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Has anybody ever answered the morning for you?
A few people, but I would say probably 2/3 say the evening, maybe 3/4. Yeah.
I am like fascinated by like the chaos. It is as if a chemical gets released into their bloodstream at like 5:45.
Yeah.
And they just go bonkers.
Yeah. If your kids had to describe you in one word, what would it be?
Happy.
Okay. What is your go-to dad wardrobe?
Oh, jeans and t-shirt.
Yeah.
Jeans, t-shirt, flip-flops.
Okay. How many dad jokes do you tell on average each day?
Oof. I would say not as many as some of your other guests. What's funny is my kids, they like good jokes, but they also, when they find something they like, they just go for it. Mm. And there was a car ride from where my parents live in Vancouver to our place. And Jovi was just like, more jokes. So for 3 hours, we were just making up dad jokes.
I'm sure your wife loved it.
She was. I think at one point she pretended to be asleep. She was like, I can't.
Okay. We're in the home stretch here. What is the most absurd thing that one of your kids has ever asked you to buy for them?
Well, for a while, Jovi wanted her own house.
Purple wall, very convinced. Rainbow walls and a pink roof, right?
Pink roof, rainbow walls. Yep. She also has repeatedly wanted a tree house. We live kind of on a cliff. And she's like, I want a tree house on the trees.
What is your favorite kids movie?
I'm trying to get my kids more into it. I don't know why, but I love the original Sword in the Stone.
Oh, yeah. That's a great film. The wizarding duel and all that stuff. Yeah.
And the music in it. Yeah. I just felt like it was just like fun music. And it kind of has that concept of like anything's possible and you don't have to be big and strong. So that for me, that's it. I think my kids are all about like the Pixar things.
Yeah. Well, the answer to this next question may be the same, but is there a nostalgic movie that you just can't wait to force your kids to watch with you when they're old enough?
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay. All right.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Last two for you. What is your favorite dad hack for road trips or flights?
It's something that I'm stealing from my parents. So we go across the Canadian border fairly frequently. I'm a dual citizen. When you're going, you don't want your kid saying something wrong when you're dealing with a border agent.
Yeah.
And I never realized it in the moment, but as an adult, now I see the brilliance of it. My parents would convince us. They would say, do you think you could trick the border agent into thinking you're asleep? And so we thought we were so funny, my sister and I. I'm sure a horrible way. We'd probably have grins like wide across our face, but we would be totally silent. And I realized all my parents were doing was like, do not say a word. But it was like such a good hack because for like years, I think I probably didn't realize until I was like 10.
Yeah. Okay. Last question for you. What is your take on minivans?
This is going to be contrarian or this is going to anger some people. But I just can't. I totally see the appeal. Mm-hmm. I can't. Mm-hmm. And I asked my wife, we have a Kia EV.
Yep.
And we love it. It's the EV9. It's like nice. It's really big.
Yeah.
Fantastic vehicle. And I can see that the doors on that thing are aggressively heavy. Yeah. And when I see the fact that the minivans, the kids that open them, they can't swing it into another car. I'm like, oh, that sounds very nice. But I asked my wife, I was like, would you ever? And she's like, I will never. I was like, okay.
At least you have an aligned front on this.
I guess.
This is good. This is good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Jamie, for joining me today. This was an epic conversation. Learned a ton. Love your philosophies and lessons and all the stories. So I wish you and your family all the best, and your company too for the rest of the year and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Well, thanks for having me. This is a delight, and I have really enjoyed listening to the other episodes of your podcast. So please keep on the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to today's conversation with Jamie Natch. You can subscribe and watch the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit www.startupdadpod.com to learn more and browse past episodes. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.